In this video, I'm going to help you understand what the differences are between hiring an employee and an independent contractor, so that by the time you're finished watching, you'll understand exactly who you're hiring and what your tax obligations are. Is this person really a contractor or are they an employee? What types of taxes do you have to pay if you hire an employee versus an independent contractor? What are the tax forms you're required to collect from them? And also, what tax forms are you required to file based on the type of person you hire? I'm going to answer all of those questions in just a moment. But before I do so, let me just quickly introduce myself if it's your first time watching. My name is Navi Maraj, and I'm a CPA and tax strategist that produces content for free right here on social media. But I also do this through a course. The course is designed to transform business owners from a state of not knowing much about running a business into a tax-savvy entrepreneur who can finally understand business taxes, bookkeeping, how to implement powerful tax strategies, and much, much more. If you're interested in learning more about the course, you can click on the link in the description below or visit my website, which is navimarajcpa.com. All right, let's jump into the slides I prepared for you. Feel free to screenshot these and use them as a resource. The first slide that I want to cover is the classification, right? This person that you're about to hire in your business, are they actually an employee or are they a contractor? A lot of times a business owner wants to kind of force them in the contractor bucket, if you will, but they're really an employee. So let's go through some of these differences. I've got a couple of slides that I want to show you. So usually when you have an employee, the agreement that you have them sign is kind of called an employer agreement or an employment agreement, whereas the contractor is going to sign the contractor agreement. The reason why I put that there, though, is because that's quite obvious, right? But the reason why I put that there is because I want you to know it doesn't really matter what the words on the agreement says. What really is important is really the next row that I've got for here is which is like who's controlling this person. Okay, so let's define sort of control. All right, so if you have an employee, that typically means that you, the employer, dictate the hours worked, the location in which they perform their work, and how that work is performed. Contrast that with the contractor, who they basically just are hired to produce a result, regardless of the hours that it takes them to do that, regardless of the location that that you're asking them to do it in, or how that work gets done. They may even be able to hire subcontractors to do that work as long as the work is done. If you think about that from the employee perspective, an employee can't, hire subcontractors to do that work. You want that employee doing that work. Well, the contractor is a little bit different, okay? Let's talk about some tools and resources. When you have an employee, the employer, are providing those tools, right? Whether that be physical tools or training materials and things like this. But with a contractor, they're going to come with the tools. Let's say that's a laptop, for example. Instead of that being employer provided, the contractor comes with their own laptop to work on whatever task that you have them to do. Number of jobs. So generally, someone's an employee if they're really only working at one job, or even if they're working at that one job, what about are you allowing them to work at other jobs, right? That could be a sign on whether someone's an employee or a contractor, because contractors can work multiple jobs and they can do that all at the same time. Training. So typically with an employee, you're kind of training this person on your process from, day zero until the time they leave your company, okay? But with the contractor, you're kind of hiring them because they already have the expertise. There's a lot less onboarding involved when you have a contractor versus an employee. And then wages, if you're an employee, you're going to get an hourly wage or a salary, and it's typically going to be on a regular schedule. For the contractor, though, those terms are specified in the contract. It could be on a project basis or a flat fee basis. It could be hourly as well, but it's typically going to be specified in your contract. It's not as regular as you would expect with a regular employee, if you will. All right, now that you know how you're classifying this individual, okay, Navi, I understand now. I definitely have an employee and not a contractor, but can you tell me what are the taxes that I need to pay regardless? What if I want to hire one employee and one contractor to do this job? What are my responsibilities? Okay, so let's look here. Federal and state income taxes. If you're an employee, then you, the employer, you're not paying any taxes, okay? Specifically, you're not paying any income taxes. So what happens though is when you do pay that employee, you withhold income taxes from their paycheck, and you are required to remit those income taxes to the federal government, the IRS, and your local state government as well. A contractor, though, that doesn't happen, okay? The contractor makes estimated income tax payments on their own. So you're not withholding that from their check. That contractor is making that income tax payments on their own. Let's talk about this next row, FICA taxes. What does that mean? That's really Social Security and Medicare taxes. So if you're hiring an employee, then you, the employer, have to pay 7.65% of Social Security and Medicare wages. So let's say you're going to pay an employee, let's keep the numbers simple, $100,000 for the year, then your responsibility would have been to pay $7,650 in Social Security and Medicare taxes to the IRS, okay? You, the employer. The employee has to do that as well from their own pay. But I'm saying here, you, the employer, has to do that. What do you have to do if you're a contractor? Nothing. You give that money to the contractor, and it's the contractor's responsibility to pay what's called self-employment taxes instead, which is my next row here, okay? If you hire an employee, you don't have to worry about paying self-employment taxes for that employee because you're paying the FICA taxes instead, right? Your share of the FICA taxes, that's the 7.65% I just mentioned a moment ago. If you're a contractor, though, you're going to pay these self-employment taxes. The Social Security and Medicare taxes that you pay are on the employee and employer side. So instead of it being 7.65%, it's that times 2, so 15.3%. But you're paying this on your profit as a contractor, right? Just because the person that hired you gave you $100,000 for the year to work on this job or whatever, right? You have expenses for your tool, your laptop, your home office, all these various things. So you're going to deduct that, and whatever your profit is, that's what you're going to pay the 15.3% on. Let's go to the next row, federal and state unemployment. Now, when you hire an employee, you're typically going to have to pay the Fed some money as well as the state, okay? The state kind of depends. I have a map here that you can have a look at to see like which states kind of cost the most for this, but anywhere from, could be as low as $50 sometimes, but all the way up to $500, $600, $700 at times as well, okay? I think Washington State is the worst state in terms of how much it could cost you, all right? Now, if you're a contractor, you don't have to pay unemployment insurance, so you don't have to worry about this. But if you're an employee, the employer, okay, this is the employer's responsibility, pays that federal and state unemployment taxes. Workers' compensation. This is something that may be required of you if you're the employer, if you hire an employee. Typically, you don't have to pay workers' comp on your wages, you, the business owner, but any employee that you hire, you likely have to pay workers' comp. Some states work a little bit differently. You might not have to get workers' comp until you have like your third or fourth employee, but every state's a little bit different there. Now, the contractor, you don't have to pay, any type of workers' compensation when you hire a contractor. But the contractor themselves, you probably want to make sure that they're insured, not just for, liability issues, but also if something happens to them on the job, they should have their own insurance for that, right? All right, that's the type of taxes that you pay. Let's talk about the tax forms that you might need to collect and issue and things like this. This can make your head spin. So if you're hiring an employee, the first thing you're going to do before the work actually begins and they actually start doing work for you is you want to have them complete an I-9 form. The I-9 form is basically a form that says, hey, you're qualified to work here in the United States, right? Typically means that you're a citizen or something like that, perhaps a permanent resident, okay? Then you're going to want that employee to also complete a W-4 form. The W-4 is used to determine how much, hey employee, how much income tax at the federal and state level do you want me to withhold from your future paychecks? I need you to fill out this form to tell me how much you want withheld from your paycheck, okay? Every state has sort of their version of this form as well. If you're a contractor or you're hiring a contractor, you want that contractor to complete Form W-9, okay? I've got a whole YouTube channel a whole YouTube channel full of videos, but I've got videos on my YouTube channel that specifically go over how to complete the W-9 form, no matter how you're taxed as the contractor, right? As the contractor, you might be an LLC, an S Corp, a sole proprietor, a partnership, and that video tells you how to complete the W-9 when someone requests it from you. The W-8 Ben is a tax form that you ask foreign contractors to complete. What's a foreign contractor? A foreign contractor is, hey, I'm here in the US operating my business. I need to hire a foreign contractor, someone who is performing their work outside of the United States and is not a US citizen. Okay, that's sort of the qualifications, if you will. Those folks, you're gonna ask them to complete a W-8 Ben and keep it in your files for your record. So hopefully when they sign that and complete that form, they're doing so in a way where you don't have to withhold any taxes from the payments that you give them, okay? Now, during the year, if you're hiring an employee, you've got to file Form 941, typically on a quarterly basis. What is this form? This is a form that you're filing that says, hey, this is the amount of FICA taxes, remember that what that is, that's Social Security and Medicare, and income taxes that I've withheld from my employee paychecks, as well as the amount of FICA taxes I paid as the employer, and I'm lumping all that together, telling you how much it is on a form, and I'm gonna send you that tax payment as well. That's typically done on Form 941. At the state level, all the various states have different form names, okay? So I couldn't list them all, but you're gonna have a state equivalent form that does the same thing. Obviously at the state level, there's no Social Security and Medicare tax, but there is income tax, right? If you're in a state that has income tax and you're withholding that income tax from their paycheck and sending it to your state's government. The contractor doesn't have to worry about this. There's no tax forms, okay? During the year, what needs to be completed by you, the employer? Well, you're gonna have state unemployment insurance and workers' compensation forms that you need to file, right? Typically on a quarterly basis. And you're also gonna have to send those payments in as well to the state. The form names vary by state, but that's typically, these things are done at the state level. Contractor, don't have to worry about this, right? So whether you are paying a contractor or you yourself are a contractor, you don't have to worry about that. What about end of the year? What type of forms are required of you at the end of the year? Well, for federal employment, or I should say federal unemployment, you have to file Form 940, okay? And then there might be a state form, so a state equivalent of that form. That form is saying like, hey, I had X amount of employees throughout the year. This is how much I have to pay the Fed for federal unemployment insurance. And so I'm sending you my form along with my payment. Contractors don't have to worry about this. What about end of the year? Let me give you a little comparison here. If you hire an employee, you got to file Form W-2, right? That makes sense. You're probably used to that, right? So you're going to file Form W-2 for your employees and get those issued out typically by, I believe, January 31st of the following year. Now, if you have a contractor, here's where you do have to issue a form as well. You, as the employer, need to issue Form 1099 NEC. I also have a video on my YouTube channel that tells you everything you really need to know about issuing a Form 1099 NEC. And are you, as the person that sort of hired this contractor to work, are you required to file that Form 1099 NEC based on how the contractor completed Form W-9, okay? So that's sort of how those two things are intertwined. Based on how that contractor completed Form W-9 will indicate to you if you need to issue a Form 1099 NEC at the end of the year or not. That's why it's critical you request that Form W-9 before you even pay that contractor, so that you're not trying to find that contractor later and get them to fill out this form that they may not want to complete, okay? So in this video, I taught you about the differences between employees and independent contractors. In most of my other videos, I'm teaching you about tax strategies, so be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you would like to learn more about business taxes in general, like LLCs, S corporations, C corporations, partnerships, and how those entities are taxed, I highly recommend watching this video. Is it long? Yes, this is one of my longer videos, but it's probably the most comprehensive and most thought out video I've ever made. So I encourage you to watch it. And of course, if you really want to turn yourself into a tax savvy entrepreneur who learns and implements tax strategies that will save you thousands of dollars each year, you can click on the link below or visit my website, navimarajcpa.com, to enroll in my course. With that said, I'll see you in the next video.